Let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members will please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, on this Thursday, April 3rd, we're very pleased to have Reverend Dr. Scott Shelton, who is the father of one of our pages. We won't say which one, but he is the Reverend at Heritage Baptist Church here in Annapolis, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 30th District. Please rise for the invocation.
I'd like for you to join me in the absurd possibility that we could spend 20 seconds in silence together. And inside of that 20 seconds, I want you to imagine the faces of the people in your district, the faces of people in the one-on-one meetings that you often have, the town halls that you've led, the door-knocking campaigns, the children in your schools, the struggling parents, the elderly, and lastly, I want you to imagine your own family looking at you. 20 seconds. I will watch the time. Almighty God, I ask for courage to rise up within the leadership of this room. May the faces they envisioned fuel the formation of the laws created by these, our elected leaders. May they give energy to these last days of session. And may each leader come into this space with the spirit to serve, not to be served. May the mountaintop of personal success pale in comparison to the joy of watching our neighbors thriving. And may the science behind the politics be selflessness. God, today, give them the grace to endure. Give them the wisdom to see what is really going on. Give them the courage to do what is right, even when it is hard. May the leaders in this chamber not slumber or wait. Instead, may they be bold in the moment of today to enter what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the fierce urgency of now. We pray that what rings true for Maryland and her citizens might prove to be an example for all states in our wonderful United States. Let us never forget that we all come from people, that we serve people, and that we are bound by people. Together, and with the faces of those looking at us in the present moment, and those yet unknown faces of future generations, we come together in prayer, recognizing our own humanity and humility in the sacred task of today. Amen.
Thank you, sir. That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Recognized Senator from the 30th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all can see, we are truly blessed to have Reverend Dr. Scott Shelton, the senior pastor of Heritage Baptist Church here in Annapolis, Maryland. Reverend Shelton is not only a dedicated pastor, but he's also a valued constituent and fellow servant in the community. His church, they open their doors for a monthly food pantry where they are servicing members of the community. He also allows the beautiful church grounds to be used for many celebrations and charitable purposes in the city of Annapolis, and we truly are blessed to have his leadership. I do know that she wouldn't mind if I use her name because she is very proud of her dad. She is one of our pages, Macy Shelton, who joins us here on the floor and is an intern in my office. And the Shelton family is truly a blessing to the city of Annapolis. Mr. President, I ask that the Reverend's comments be journalized. Thank you.
Without objection, most certainly we'll journalize the wonderful invocation this morning and thank the Reverend for being here and raising a great daughter and doing all the things. So thank you very much. All right, has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again back in session. Senators, we have a a special day today. This was supposed to be earlier in the year, but we had to reschedule it for, I think it was sicknesses. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we are very, very pleased to have the Teachers of the Year. If we could have the clerk begin to read through the teachers and their districts.
Allegheny County Public Schools, David Buskirk. Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Elizabeth Heist. Baltimore County Public Schools, Stephanie Gerhold. Calvert County Public Schools, Megan Jeffries. Caroline County Public Schools, Danielle Dennis.
We are thankful for all of them. We're going to let them all get called in so that we can hear their names and their schools, and then we will give a rousing round of applause at the end. Madam Clerk, please continue.
Carroll County Public Schools, Brian Thompson. Cecil County Public Schools, Brittany Rigdon. Charles County Public Schools, Joshua Scott Clark. Dorchester County Public Schools, Caitlin Robinson. Frederick County Public Schools, Yvette Vichot Taboas. Garrett County Public Schools, Caitlin Bolyard. Harford County Public Schools, Erica Richardson. Howard County Public Schools, Jessica Idalia Nichols. Kent County Public Schools, Caitlin Wright. Montgomery County Public Schools, Melissa Porter Parks. Prince George's County Public Schools, Kathy Russell. Queen Anne's County Public Schools, Megan Borga. Somerset County Public Schools, Zachary D. Bartome. St. Mary's County Public Schools, Lauren Runkles. Talbot County Public Schools, Jeremy Costu Hilliard. Washington County Public Schools, Brittany Collins. Wycomico County Public Schools, Deborah Lee Reynolds. And Worcester County Public Schools, Gabrielle Constantine Remington.
The clerk will read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to the 2024-25 Teachers of the Year in recognition of being selected as the 2024-2025 Teachers of the Year for your jurisdictions. We applaud your outstanding contributions to enhancing the education of Maryland students. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this third day of April 2025.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? I hope not. The clerk will take the call. To the 2024-2025 Teachers of the Year, the Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates your excellence and brilliance, and we are so deeply thankful for you. Congratulations. We thank you all so much, but you are not quite done yet. We have one more, and I have to say, Senators, I don't mean to brag, but 2 out of the last 3 years, the Teacher of the Year has been from the 46th District. I'm just saying, but I would like to introduce Kat Locke-Jones, who believes that creating brave spaces for students means reflecting their authentic light back to them. Ms. Locke-Jones earned her English education degree from the University of Delaware in 2013 and her MSED from Johns Hopkins University in 2015. Ms. Locke-Jones is the co-founder of SL24 and Sean's House, a mental health foundation focused on educating, assisting, and supporting students. As a Baltimore City Public School model teacher and 2023 Teacher of the Year finalist, she feels incredibly lucky to teach 7th grade ELA at the incredible school down the street from my house at Hampstead Hill Elementary, where she's not trying to be the best, worst dancer in her classroom. She's passionate about teaching students to write and tell their own stories. And I think her favorite quote, summarizes all of the incredible impact that she has had. There are 2 ways of spreading light: to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. And with that, if we could have the clerk please read the resolution in full for this year's 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Kat Locke Jones of Hampstead Hill Academy, Baltimore City, in recognition of being selected as the 2024-2025 Maryland Teacher of the Year. We applaud your outstanding contributions to enhancing the education of Maryland students. The entire membership extends its best wishes to be presented on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on the third day of April 2025.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. To Miss Kat Locke Jones, congratulations on being this year's Teacher of the Year. We are so incredibly impressed and thankful for you. Congratulations. Would you like to?
Thank you so much. I don't get this round of applause when I tell bad jokes in 7th grade, so this is a nice way to have a Thursday. Really quick, I want to tell a quick story about what happened my second year of teaching. I had a student named Antonio, and Antonio had what the Irish said, the gift of the blarney. Oh, okay, we have an Antonio in the house. And Antonio, he was so amazing because if he didn't have his homework, he would often tell me, well, Baltimore is only 45 minutes from DC, and if there's a political crisis, of course they're calling a 12-year-old to help solve it. And one day, Antonio was late to my class, and I don't know if it was a Monday or if I wasn't in the mood, but Antonio said, Miss Locke, what had happened was, and I said, Antonio, not right now. I closed my eyes, and Antonio was opening up a kitten into the classroom. And he said, we're going to keep it, right? And it made me think about what our kids bring into our classrooms. You're never quite sure what they will bring into their classrooms or what's in their backpack, what hopes, what fears, what traumas, what coping mechanisms our students bring into our classrooms, into our schools. But we know what our teachers bring. Our teachers bring light. Our teachers are lighthouses for our students, no matter the storm, no matter the weather. You can never dismantle light. And so today, I'm so incredibly happy and proud and honored to be standing with lighthouses and to be with all of you today because you're in this chair because a teacher was a spark for your light. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for being here with us. You are truly the light of our state, and we are so deeply thankful for your work every single day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're also joined by our state superintendent. Thank you for joining us as well. Superintendent Wright, we appreciate you and all of your team and all the work we're all trying to do together. Thank you. All right, appreciate you all. Are we going this way? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Senator from... Oh, we haven't done a picture yet. I'm sorry, of course. Yes. Yes, please. Excellent. Thank you all again. It's the teachers that change the world, so keep up the amazing, amazing work. Thank you. Hopefully you all get the day off today. Or do you have to go back and get it? Nice, good. Do something fun, right? Excellent. To you all. All right, nice way to start out the day. Remind us who's doing the great work across the state. Let's see, do we have any introductions today? Yes, Senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I have a shadow with me, Dr. David Brown, one of my constituents from Upper Marlboro. He is a managing attorney, and he's also a real estate lawyer who's practiced law since 2017, a member of the United States Supreme Court Bar. and he will be joining us throughout the day to see our legislative action and work. Please give him a round,
Excellent. Welcome.
a warm Senate welcome.
Welcome. Senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a young lady over here to my left, Chloe Harris. She's an 8th grader at North Hartford Middle School, avid softball and basketball player and big outdoors person. She volunteers at Eden Mill Nature Center up in Hartford County. So I want to welcome her to Annapolis today.
Very good. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Very good. Senator from the 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got some honored guests today up in the balcony. I'd like to ask the Cambridge South Dorchester Vikings basketball team, they're right over your head, Mr. President, if they could please stand up. Colleagues, this is a big day for District 37. You haven't seen a lot of sports teams come from District 37. We have a great honor today to be able to celebrate. Cambridge South Dorchester High School last year was the Division 1A runner-up in basketball. For the last 3 years, they've been the Division 1A regional champ. That's over on the Eastern Shore. For the last 2 years, they've been the Bayside champ for the North Division over on the Eastern Shore. Their coach, Sean Tucker, who's with us, has led them along the way. He's been the coach of the year in the North Bayside for the past 2 years. And this year, colleagues, I'm proud to present to you the Division 1A state basketball champions, Cambridge South Dorchester Vikings. Gentlemen, give us a hand. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Senator from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I would like for you to help me introduce an honored constituent today. Ebony Johnson Cooper, the founder of the Young Black and Giving Back Institute, which assists Black-led nonprofits in their development, as well as supports aspiring professionals and entrepreneurs. She is also an associate professor and faculty director for nonprofit executive education and training at the School of Public Policy in the University of Maryland. Ebony is recognized as one of the nation's top leaders in philanthropy, supporting the African American community, and is a wonderful Prince George's County resident. Please give her a round of applause.
Wonderful. Welcome.
And,
Senator, may proceed.
And most importantly, I would like to introduce one of my mentors, one of my constituents who is here, Ebony's son, Marcus. He is a bright student at Reed Early Learning Center and one of my favorite constituents. Marcus is 3.5 years old, and as he likes to say, he'll be four on July 4th this year. Please give him a round of applause.
There are not many folks that can outdress the senator from the 22nd district, but I'll tell you what, Marcus has given the senator a run for his money, so very good. Welcome. Welcome. Yes, Senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You guys had the opportunity to hear me talk a lot about a great team in basketball here in the state of Maryland, and I've had the distinct honor and privilege to have them here on the floor today. Well, not the floor, but in the balcony above me today. My alma mater, Largo High School. This is not the first time that you saw them. They were here last year because they are two-time back-to-back 2A champions for the state of Maryland and men's basketball. They are led and have been led in 2023 as runner-ups and in 2024 and 2025 as the Maryland 2A champs by a phenomenal young man, Cam Ward, who set a major milestone this season, and I think we really need to acknowledge this milestone. Cam Ward became Maryland's public high school all-time leading scorer, finishing his high school basketball career with 2,714 points. This is the first new leading scorer in Maryland high school basketball history since 1992. He is also a two-time Gatorade Maryland Boys Basketball Player of the Year and D1 basketball commit to Michigan State University. Cam is an incredible leader, but he could not have done this without his talented and incredible team. So as we celebrate their accomplishments, let's not only applaud the victories, but also the journey and the countless hours of practice that these young men have put in. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming my alma mater, Largo High School boys basketball team, our two-time state champions.
Excellent. Very good. Congratulations to y'all, and enjoy your day here today. Keep up the great work. Well done. Well done. All right, let's see, do we have any further introductions? We got a lot of work today, so we've got oops, I'm sorry, yeah, Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, it really is a pleasure for me to introduce to you all the students from Charles Herbert Flowers High School. I want to tell you a little bit about them, about their first principal, Helena Noble Jones. She built a foundation at Charles Herbert Flowers that said no child should be left behind. She was the one who crafted that. And if these people had the time, I would sing the song that she wrote, Charles Herbert Flowers. I was an administrative assistant, and my office was on the top floor, and saw how that school was crafted. The youngsters that you see here are really rising stars, and I'm just so pleased that they came down today to visit. Please welcome these outstanding students from Charles Herbert Flowers High School.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Senator, and I hope your students have a wonderful, wonderful day here today and enjoy seeing democracy in Maryland work. That's how at least we hope to be that model. All right, let's see, any other introductions before we jump in? If not, so we consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We will start with, well, actually, schedule-wise, let's think about this. We're going to do, I don't know, several hours here this morning. We'll probably break 1-ish or so, 1:30 maybe, and then we will break and come back ideally around 4:30, but we'll see where we are kind of time-wise once we leave today. So that's our general. 2 today, definitely 2 tomorrow. We'll keep Saturday. Saturday's going to happen. It's going to happen. So we're looking at like an 11 o'clock on Saturday is kind of the general framework. I know, I'm sorry, but it's like Office Space. I'm going to need you to come in on the weekend. Yeah, so, all right, let's get in there. All right, message from the House, number 4. Clerk will read the message.
Message from the House of Delegates number 4, Senate bills passed by yeas and nays. Senate Bill 40, Senator Muse, Vehicle Laws, Towed, Removed, or Abandoned Vehicles, Electronic Notice to Owner. Senate Bill 125, Senator Guile, Residential Real
Majority
Property.
leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They are passed by the yeas and nays. We've got another message from the House, number 32. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1199, Delegate Hill, Physicians Licensing and Internationally Trained Physicians, Rules.
All right, bill will be referred to the Rules Committee. Let's go ahead and start with Finance. I think this is the first one, but the stacks here are pretty large, so we'll see. I think, Madam Chair, this is going to start with report number 49. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 433, the President, Office of Disability Employment Advancement and Policy, and Maryland as a model for employer initiative established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the Vice Chair as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 433 is an administration bill that establishes the Office of Disability Employment Advancement and Policy in the Maryland Department of Disabilities to, among other things, implement the Maryland as a model employer initiative beginning July 1st, 2026. ODEAP is responsible for the implementation and oversight of the initiative by December 1st of that year, and annually thereafter must submit an annual report to the General Assembly. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies that at the beginning in fiscal year 2007, the governor may include an appropriation of $250,000 in the annual budget. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendment and adoption favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 433 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 858, Senator Henson, State Public Transit Service and Stations, exclusion for assault and bodily injury, favorable with 3 amendments.
Recognize Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, there has been a real problem with our hardworking women and men who are working in public transit being physically assaulted. So Senate Bill 858 as amended requires the Maryland Transit Administration by June 1, 2025 to convene a work group to create a rider code of conduct and implement a comprehensive internal safety program to strengthen protections for MTA operators and passengers. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 expands a definition. Amendment 3 establishes a work group. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves to the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 858 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 920, Senator Guile, Public Health Maryland Interested Parties Advisory Group Establishment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 920 generally codifies the federally required Maryland Interested Parties Advisory Group in the Maryland Department of Health. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 provides that the primary purpose of the advisory group is to advise and consult on Medicaid payment rate sufficiency, alters the composition of the advisory group, strikes specific language about data to be provided by the department in advance of meetings, strikes a requirement for the department to develop a public education campaign, and strikes specific requirements related to the annual report. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 920 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1019, Howard County Senators, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages Class MT Movie Theater License, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 12th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1019, as amended, is identical to House Bill 1494. The bill establishes a Class MT movie theater beer, wine, and liquor license in Howard County, which authorizes the sale of beer, wine, and liquor at retail for on-premise consumption by a patron who has purchased a ticket to a current or future showing of a movie on the licensed premises. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical. The second conforms the bill to its House cross-file. There's no opposition in the committee hearing. Move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1019 is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1027, Senator Lewis Young, Maryland Developmental Disabilities Administration Waiver Advisory Council, establishment, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1027 codifies the Maryland Department of Disabilities Administration Waiver Advisory Council and DDA to advise and provide recommendations to Developmental Disabilities Administration on system design, service delivery, and quality enhancement standards for the Medicaid waiver programs operated by the administration. Amendment number 1 adds members to the advisory council. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments, further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1027 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Yes, recognize the senator from the 41st District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, today joining us, we have Davon Love. I believe he just stepped out. He's a constituent of the great 41st District. But with him are students from the Crayons and Culture program at the Great Western High School in Baltimore City's 41st District. So please join me in welcoming them today. Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome.
Mr.
Welcome.
President.
I think Mr. Love is in the balcony behind you, Senator. Yes, so very good. Good to see you.
Mr. President.
Yes, recognize the minority whip.
I missed the opportunity earlier, so since we've stopped, I was
Senator,
just
may
wanting to
proceed.
Yeah, thank you so much. My intern for this session, Ryan Cave, is a freshman at the University of Maryland, and he was a page for us last year here, and he's been with us this session. He's up in the gallery. I'm not sure which side, but oh, there he is right there. I just asked the body. He's done good work. Asked the body to give him a warm welcome to the Senate today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, let's stick with finance. We'll keep going here. We're going to go to report number 50. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 46, Chair, Health and Government Operations Committee, Public Health, Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the senator from District 8 is the floor leader.
Thanks, Mr. President. House Bill 46 is a departmental bill that, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 222, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill adds representatives from the Motor Vehicle Administration and the Office of Social Equity to the membership of the Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council. Amendment number 1 conforms the bill to its Senate cross-file as it passed the Senate. There is no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 46 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 799, Delegate Vogel, Economic Development, Maryland Innovation Initiative Institution Partnership Extension Program, establishment, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 37th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 799 establishes the Maryland Innovation Initiative Institution Partnership Extension Program. That's a lot to say, and that's a mouthful. The extension program is implemented and administered by the initiative, which already exists within TEDCO. The purpose of the extension program is to expand opportunities at eligible institutions for technology validation, entrepreneurial development, and industry engagement. Eligible institutions include Bowie State, Frostburg State, and other public or private nonprofit institutions of higher education deemed eligible by the initiative. Each institution must provide a cash match equivalent to 10% of the amount awarded under the program. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments? Sorry. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 799 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Totally separate thing. Sorry. Apologies. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1018, Delegate Pruski, Financial Institutions, Conventional Home Mortgage Loans, Assumption and Required Disclosures, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1018 is similar to Senate Bill 689, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. House Bill 1018 requires banking institutions, credit unions, and mortgage lenders to include a provision in all conventional home mortgage loans that allows any of the existing borrowers to purchase the property interest of other borrowers in the event of a divorce. I want to mention that those borrowers need to qualify, so they'll qualify by income and credit, but they should be allowed to take over that mortgage. The bill's provisions apply retroactively to any conventional home mortgage loan entered into prior to the bill's effective date. Amendment 1 clarifies that the retroactivity clause will not apply in cases where a divorce decree was entered prior to the bill's effective date. There's no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1018 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1018, Delegate Pruski.
No, it's coming.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. House Bill 1021, Delegate Taylor, Real Estate Appraisals, Licensure and Certification, Qualifications, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 20th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. House Bill 1021 prohibits State Commission of Real Estate Appraisers, appraisal management companies, and home inspectors from requiring an applicant to hold a bachelor's degree or higher to qualify for licensure as a real estate appraiser or for a certification as a residential real estate appraiser. In Maryland, there's a shortage of real estate appraisers, which typically is detrimental to closers and getting these transactions approved. So this bill would hopefully help speed up the process. There are no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. Mr. President, I move the adoption of a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1021 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1494, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages, Class MT, Movie Theater License, favorable.
Recognize the senator from District 12.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1494 is identical to Senate Bill 1019 that we just heard about 10 minutes ago. This bill establishes a movie theater beer, wine, liquor license for a patron who's watching a movie. There are no committee amendments. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Senator moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1494 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1516, Delegate Queen, Financial Institutions Consumer Credit Application of Licensing Requirements, Maryland Secondary Market Stability Act of 2025, favorable. Two amendments.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1516 is an emergency bill and is similar to Senate Bill 1026, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. As amended, House Bill 1516 generally exempts from state licensure a passive trust that simply acquires a mortgage loan but does not make mortgage loans, is not a mortgage broker or servicer, and does not engage in servicing mortgage loans. House Bill 1516 also establishes the Maryland Licensing Work Group, staffed by the Office of Financial Regulation. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 strikes the bill as introduced and narrows the bill as described. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1516 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. That does it for that calendar, correct? It does. All right. Let's go to 51, calendar 51. Sticking with finance, clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 406, Delegate Zone, State Board of Examiners for Audiologists, Hearing Dispensers, Speech Language Pathologists, and Music Therapists. Appointment of hearing aid dispenser members, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 33rd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 406 requires the governor to appoint the hearing aid dispenser members of the State Board of Examiners for Audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, speech-language pathologists, and music therapists with the advice of the Secretary of Health from a list submitted to the Secretary and the Governor by the Board instead of by the Maryland members of the Hearing Society of Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Delaware. The Board must notify all licensed hearing aid dispensers of relevant vacancies for the purpose of soliciting nominations. There are no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 406 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 502, the Speaker, Office of Disability Employment Advancement and Policy in Maryland as a Model Employer Initiative, established, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Colleagues, House Bill 502 is the bill you just heard a couple of minutes ago. Senate Bill 433. It's an excellent bill that creates opportunities for those with disabilities to seek employment. Amendment number 1 specifies beginning in fiscal year 2027, the governor may include an appropriation of $250,000 in the annual budget. I move the amendments and adoption favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 502 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 871, Delegate Bagnell, Health Services Cost Review Commission, Community Benefits, Community Health Workers Workforce Program, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 28th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 871 alters the definition of community benefit to include a community health worker workforce program between a nonprofit hospital and a community-based organization. The purpose of a community health worker workforce program must be to provide services to patients of a nonprofit hospital that are intended to improve health outcomes and address social determinants of health. Amendment 1 makes technical changes. Amendment 2 authorizes instead of requires a partnership that establishes a community health worker workforce program to be executed through a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 871 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1066, Delegate Ruth, Commission on Behavioral Health Care Treatment and Access Work Groups, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Commission on Behavioral Health Care, Treatment, and Access to establish an additional work group on improvement of health, social, and economic outcomes related to substance use. The work group must evaluate and review specified issues, including the Department of Health regulations on standards for the discharge of patients from substance abuse use treatment programs. There are no amendments, there are no opposition, and I move to adopt the favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1066 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1142, Delegate Bagnell, Public Health, Maryland Interested Parties Advisory Group, establishment, favorable 1 amendment.
Recognizing the senator from Anne Arundel is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1142 generally codifies the federally required Maryland Interested Parties Advisory Group in the Maryland Department of Health to advise and consult on Medicaid rate sufficiency. Amendment 1 alters the composition of the advisory group, removing a duplicative member. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1066 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill. So it's 1142 is what we're on. 1244. So it was 1142 that was ordered passed for third reading. And 1244. There it goes. We're having some. We've been working that board very hard. It's on the struggle bus at the moment. Clerk, read the bill.
All right. House Bill 1244, Delegate Guyton, Maryland Developmental Disabilities Administration Waiver Advisory Council, establishment, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Again, colleagues, House Bill 1244 is the same that I read in Senate Bill 1027 just a couple of minutes ago. It simply codifies the Maryland Department of Development and Disabilities Advisory Council. Amendment number 1 adds members to the advisory council. There's no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and adoption of favorable committee report.
All right. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment Can we just double check to make sure that's the committee amendment? It came up differently. .023. That's correct? Okay. All right. Questions on the amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1244 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right. Sticking with finance. Calendar 52. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 450, Delegate Guyton, Maryland Transit Administration Disability Reduced Fare Program, renewal for permanently disabled individuals, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 450 requires the Maryland Transit Administration to automatically renew, based on regulations adopted by the MTA, the Disability Reduced Fare Program certification of an enrollee who is permanently disabled. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 450 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 527, Delegate Charkoudian, Maryland Transit Administration, Purple Line, free ridership and promotional materials and services, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you know, the Purple Line is being built in Prince George's and Montgomery counties. This bill will provide a very modest gesture of gratitude to the residents and businesses along the route who have been harmed by the construction of the Purple Line over these last 5 to 7 years. Residents within a half mile of the line will receive a pass to ride the Purple Line for free just 1 month. Small businesses within a fourth of a mile of the line will receive a free promotional materials and services beginning on October 25th, 2025, and until 3 months after the transit service on the Purple Line begins. So this bill helps small businesses as well as residents along the Purple Line route. The Maryland Transit Administration will use internal resources available to implement this program, including websites maintained by the administration, the printing and design services of the administration, and the administration will not be required to procure private advertising or marketing services. I respectfully request a favorable. I move the favorable report.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the favorable committee report. Senator, how's the cleanup happening along the route? Are we better than where we were?
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's definitely better than where we were before.
Good. Senator's been a champion on trying to get the construction to go well. So, yes, recognize the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader yield. Senator may proceed.
We've been hearing about the Purple Line for years, and my question is sort of along the line of yours. It looks like from this bill we're getting close to the end. When is the Purple Line expected to open?
We hope in about 3 years, about 3 to 4 years.
So why are we going to do promotional materials starting now? Do 3 years of promotion?
It says within a half mile radius, businesses will receive free promotional materials and services beginning this year. The reason being is because these businesses have been displaced many times along the construction route. I mean, we've seen businesses leave these areas and these low-income communities where they don't have the services that they need to receive. So right now, they need these promotional materials to help to make sure people know that they still exist and that they're still there.
Okay, well, I'm all in favor of promotional materials. I just think to distribute them 3 years before the line opens is putting the cart before the horse, isn't it?
No, I disagree. I think right now these businesses have been dealing with the construction of this line for about 5 to 7 years now, and they've hurt from the construction. So folks aren't able to get in their shops or in their stores, and it's been hurting them for such a long time. I believe this would be helpful to letting the community know at large that these businesses still exist and to promote their businesses as well.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Any objections to the report? Without objection, yes, I recognize the senator from Prince George's on the report.
Yes, on the bill.
Question for the floor leader?
I'm sorry.
Question for the floor leader?
Yes.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Mr. Floor Leader, good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please explain to these people how important, once again, how important this bill is for the people over there? I'm talking now about the small businesses. And let's stress just a little bit about what has really happened to those small businesses that are over there. Could you please reiterate that?
Yes, thank you for the question. You know, the Purple Line has been promised to this community for over almost 20 years now, that this Purple Line was going to be built. It started construction at least 7 to 8 years ago, and these residents, as well as businesses, small businesses in our community that created a coffee shop, a pizza place, or even these types of small businesses have been displaced, or we've seen, according to them, their sales decline. This bill will help them in an economic development way to make sure that their people in these areas understand and know that their businesses still exist, so they can go there and not be deterred by the construction that exists there. During the interim, the Senate President and the Senate President's Chief of Staff, Sally, and I took a tour of the construction. And I just can't tell you how horrible it was just to walk along that route and see how hard it was to go from one side of the street to the next, or the pedestrian safety issues that exist right now. These communities need all the help they can get, and this is just one token to show them that we appreciate them, whether they're a resident that deserves that 1 month of free ridership within a 1/4 mile, or if it's a small business that started there before the Purple Line even existed, who was considering moving from those areas. And so I want to thank the Senate President's Chief of Staff, Sally, as well as Senate President, who helped us mitigate some of those concerns that we had there, because it was really bad at one point. But now we're in a better place because of it.
Appreciate that.
I just want to ask one more question. Is there a time set for the free ridership? Is there a time set?
Yes,
we just really can't do enough for these people who are over there that have suffered. And those small businesses, many of them are gone out of business. When we talk about small business, it really has been very shameful.
Yes, it is. For ridership is just 1 month after it opens, and the promotion material will start this year, but it ends about 3 months after the Purple Line begins. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further discussion on the report? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 527 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 718, Delegate Rosenberg, Maryland Health Insurance Coverage Protection Commission, established, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 33rd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 718 reestablishes the Maryland Health Insurance Coverage Protection Commission to monitor potential and actual federal changes to the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, the Federal Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, Medicaid, the Maryland Children's Health Program, Medicare, and the Maryland All-Payer Model. The Commission must assess the impact of such changes and provide recommendations for state and local action to protect access to affordable health coverage. The amendment adds members to the Commission. I move the amendment and adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Subcommittee Chair of Health, could we look at this as language for the budget to have this entity look at it as well? Just as just a note as we're thinking about.
I'll connect with the good senator, and then we'll take a look at it, Mr.
Great.
President.
Excellent. Cool? Perfect. All right. On the the amendment, any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 718 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 895, Delegate Rogers, Employment Insurance Equality for Service Members Act, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 895 is the same as the Senate Bill 279, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill establishes uniform definitions in the state government article related to military designations by reference to definitions in the U.S. Code throughout several articles in the Maryland Code. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 895 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1144, Delegate Addison, State Public Transit Services and Stations, exclusion for assault and bodily injury, favorable.
Recognized Senator from Montgomery County is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 1144 is the cross-file to the Senate Bill 858, which was just discussed on calendar 49. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1144 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to Education, Energy, and the Environment. We'll start with, actually, we don't have the chair here. He's not, okay. All right, let's go to report number 39. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 150, Chair Ways and Means, Child Care Centers certificated staff ratio requirement alteration, favorable.
Recognized Senator from the 41st District.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill changes the requirement that child care centers serving more than 20 children must have at least one staff member who is certified in basic first aid and CPR training. And under this bill, MSD is now authorized to set the ratio through regulation. There are no committee amendments. There's no fiscal impact. And I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 150 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 161, Delegate Atterbury, Primary and Secondary Education, Comprehensive Health Education Framework established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 43rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 161 requires that local curriculum guides and course study adopted by county boards of education align with the content of standards developed by the Maryland State Department of Education. I just should note, the body should note that the bill came in a very different posture. It was focused specifically on the health framework. The committee and the bill sponsors felt like there was a broader set of practices that we could establish using this bill as a vehicle. So just some background. In Maryland, each county board of education is responsible for adopting curriculum guides. And they are supposed to adopt certain courses of study that are used in local schools. However, all local curricula are expected to align with the state context. So meaning that the state and MSDE does rely or empower local jurisdictions and local LEAs to create these curriculum guides, to set curriculum for their local schools. However, there are requirements that they align. So what HB 161 does is that it ensures that there is consistency and an accountability structure by reinforcing the expectation that there is alignment, and that it creates a structured process for identifying and also correcting any discrepancies when there is a discrepancy between what is required or recommended for a curriculum in terms of its content, and specifically making sure that it aligns with state standards. Again, very clear that this is about alignment of state standards. Under the bill, if the state superintendent identifies a misalignment, and again, a misalignment, the local school system is required to, 1, meet with the superintendent within 30 days. So, okay, they'll give notice. Your curriculum is not in alignment. Here's an opportunity. Let's talk about it. Second, they're asked to develop and implement a corrective plan with a timeline. And third, if the plan is not followed, they can adopt the state curriculum only for the subjects identified in the corrective plan. If the county board fails to adopt the required curriculum, the state superintendent may withhold state education fund. This is not new language, this is current practice. This is already in law. By strengthening curriculum oversight and alignment, HB 161 helps ensure that all students across Maryland have access to high quality, standards-based education, regardless of what school they attend. There are two committee amendments. One is technical. Amendment 2 strikes the bill as introduced, and that, again, as I noted earlier, that it was focused on the health curriculum, and makes substantive changes described as I just described. I move for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognize the senator from Carroll County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I ask the floor leader to yield for questions?
Senator may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. So this bill, as it came over from the House, there's a lot struck at it with that amendment. It was about the health curriculum, and we don't generally put curriculum in state law, correct?
Could you ask that question in a different way? Because we do. So
we don't generally put detailed curriculum breakdowns into state law.
I can't answer that right now, but I think we have a general practice of not doing that.
That's okay. Right. And we're not in this bill now as amended.
That is correct.
So there's nothing in there about any curriculum specifically now because of the amendment.
It's really that all just simply stating that all curriculum should align with state standards.
With the state standards. And state standards, I'll get to that in a minute actually. Let me ask this question.
Sure.
There was also something in here that was, I think, a little bit inflammatory. It sounds like the amendments address that issue where there was something in here, language about parents not being able to opt out of certain types of instruction. And that's no longer in the bill because of the amendment?
Mr. President, I wouldn't sort of describe that language as inflammatory, but yeah, simply stated, the bill does not address and maintains the current policy that parents are able to opt out, yeah.
Right, well, when I say inflammatory, it inflamed a lot of people that communicated with us that they all of a sudden were not allowing this bill, if it was passed as it originally came over, would have said you can't opt out of certain parts of instruction that come in family life. So it's separated out, but that's not in this bill anymore. The amendments have taken care
Mr. President,
of that.
I would understand we've read the prior bill. I would just like to contain the conversation to the bill before us.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I was trying to just elucidate what is in the amendments. So this amendment struck that language, I think.
Is that correct, Madam?
It is.
Okay. No, thank you. That's good. I think that's a good change. So as we get to what's now in the bill with the amendments, we have three terms that are defined: content standards, curriculum resources, and curriculum standards. Now, curriculum standards I understand because we've established a curriculum that sets certain standards for what needs to be instructed and what students need to know by the time they're done with, say, first grade or fourth grade and in a different subject area. I assume that's a pretty good layman's explanation of what a curriculum standard is, and feel free to correct me.
I will.
Yeah. Content standards has the meaning stated in 7-202.1 of this article, which I don't have in front of me, so what does content standards mean specifically?
Well, so for example, associated with, say, Algebra 2, there's certain components of a Algebra 2 or a mathematics curriculum, right, that you would expect. So you would expect some, rather broadly, let's say mathematics or secondary mathematics, you'd expect, pre-algebra, algebra. So, and then within those, there are units that align with and help the students achieve the learning goals.
So let me, using the algebra example, and my daughter's in algebra, taking algebra now, so, which I
And
never
I'm
was.
teaching algebra
I was
right
never a big fan. Well, this is great. Maybe you can help me. So curriculum, the curriculum says we're doing Algebra 1 in 7th grade. The content standard says in quarter number 2, you're going to be on to variables and fraction variables and right.
Yeah.
That's the content standard then.
Yes, yes.
By the second semester, they will be, or if it's quarterly, they will be at this stage of understanding algebra.
Correct.
Okay. So, and then curriculum resources has the meeting also stated. What does curriculum resources mean?
Again, this is existing law. So
No, I know.
well,
Yes. Yeah.
You and I know, but just making sure
sorry.
the body
Yeah.
knows.
Yes. Thank you.
You know, this is existing law, so it's referencing existing law. That there are certain resources that are recommended, again, not required, but are recommended to be used. So in the course of executing a particular curriculum.
So anything from the kinds of books we use to the kinds of videos or instructional materials, correct? And the MSD standards don't spell out always.
Yeah, and as usual, that remains the choice of the local, right?
Within the context of it has to be appropriate to the content standards.
Meeting the goal. So
Meeting
in
the
other words,
goal.
we don't say how to meet the goal. You don't choose like which textbook, but that textbook must be aligned with the standards.
Right, gotcha. So, great. And then so as we go down into the new language further, if the state superintendent establish curriculum, okay, it says, I'm sorry, I'm going to start above it. Subject to the applicable provisions of this article and the bylaws, basic policies and guidelines established by the state board, each county board, on the written recommendation of the county superintendent, shall establish curriculum guides and courses of study, which is already current law. It's in italics because it's new language in the bill, but it's current law.
Correct.
Okay. Aligned with the content standards developed, that's new language, developed under 7202 of this article for the school under its jurisdiction, including appropriate programs of instructions or training for children with disabilities. Supply printed copies of these materials to any teacher or interested individual. So that's a category in itself. So why is aligned with content standards added into what was current law for there? What does that speak to as a change?
It's a clarification. So if the terminology is sort of ambiguous, and so to be very clear that it's aligning with what is currently in Maryland law.
Or in Maryland regulation.
Or, yes, of course.
Okay, so then we get to section C, and for those following along, let's see, we're on page 4 of the reprint. We get to section C and we say, if the superintendent receives notice or determines that a county board established curriculum guides and courses of study contrary to the requirements of the subsection of this section, the state superintendent shall send a written notice of discrepancy to the county board. This is good because it facilitates, if there's a report, the superintendent, the first step is, under this language, is for the superintendent to reach out to the board, which I'm sure would have happened anyway, but it's good to know that that's going to be in here. What does it mean to receive notice? Who's giving her the notice? Or
Well, it could
him
be
or
anyone. I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, it could be anyone. I mean, if someone alerts you that there is a light out on the street in front of the school, I mean, it could be a parent, it could be another teacher, it could be, anyone. And so someone might report something, and then formally the superintendent it'll become a written sort of notice, and then that will be provided to the local school system.
So if a parent feels something isn't being followed, they could
correct.
they could email the superintendent. But I'm sure that happens a lot. So I assume the superintendent vets those and says,
right.
well,
And that's what's good about this, is to actually provide a framework for these to be vetted and for there to be a response
Okay, and then we've got within 30 days after the county board, they have 30 days to reply. Oh, it says the county shall meet with the superintendent to discuss the discrepancies. Okay, great. And then develop a corrective plan And I'm just looking through here. So the next step after they reply, if the superintendent feels that their reply is not satisfactory, I see the language, but could you walk me through the next step now?
Sure.
'Cause-
So if they can develop the corrective plan, and if the plan is not followed, and again, this is consistent with blueprint language, with AIB, that then there can be a fiscal consequence.
Okay, written notice of termination under.
And that's for any, that's existing law. You can withhold state funds. But
But-
again, this is an extreme situation which
Because
has
at
not yet occurred.
Because at this point, there would have been a back and forth with, we don't agree that this is a violation. The superintendent says, yes, it is. Okay, we're going to mitigate it. And then they try to mitigate it, but maybe there could be a dispute over whether it's been properly mitigated. And there's time, this builds in some time for there to be conversation.
Yes.
Okay. When we get to punitive, there's the opportunity to withhold funds.
Right.
Who makes that determination? Does the superintendent, in this case herself?
I check for sure.
Yep. So
superintendent.
She alone would say, no, this isn't good enough, and you've refused to go further, hypothetically, in correcting this.
Right.
That you haven't gotten to quadrilaterals yet in math. Okay. You're refusing to teach quadrilaterals.
I would support that.
Yeah, I would too. I would actually perhaps support. Well, never mind. Let's not get into it. No, I'm kidding. So they would. She in this case, she would say, "We're holding. I'm recommending that your funding be held." What happens then? Does she send a notice to the comptroller or?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to orient you to that a lot of this has been set up around accountability within the blueprint. So also the school districts have provided their plans, right? So there are plans already with the AIB and with the state board. So the plans should align with the guidelines, right? So it wouldn't be introducing any kind of new expectations or expectations that the local board itself had not agreed to, right? Remember, because their overall plan has to be approved.
So this would be a violation of, hey, you approved your plan with us,
yes.
and we have a report that you're not following it properly.
Yes.
And then there's this time to say, no, yes, we are. Okay, let's look. No, you're not. Or here's the plan to fix it. Okay. And how much money can they withhold if this were to happen? How much money could the superintendent withhold?
I don't think it's
Okay.
predetermined. So hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a set amount.
Okay, so there could be there's flexibility to say, well, we'll withhold 10% of the funds or 20% of the funds to your school
there's
system.
no set amount at this point.
Could be all of them, though, right?
I think that would be
Extreme.
very unlikely.
I mean, perhaps. Okay. And then how long is the money withheld? Until you comply?
I'll get back to you on that. I would assume until compliance. That would be, yes. Yeah. That was right.
Okay. All right. And then going down a little bit further in the amendments, and I appreciate the indulgence, Mr. President, but this is a big change in the bill, and it's of great interest, I think, to our local school boards, because there's been some disputes at times over what is compliance with different types of curriculum standards. There's also some significant concerns about some of the ways that sort of a top-down look at curriculum can be. We do understand we need statewide standards for things, but it's a challenge sometimes to find the right balance of local control and statewide control. I see down here, content standards means the statements for the program of instruction that describes the knowledge and skills students are expected to attain. We covered that. So content standards seems to keep getting added in here, and is that into what is current language but being introduced in the bill? Content standards is not a new term to be used in our law, though, correct? They're just adding this to a different
To
place.
this section, correct, yes.
Okay, okay. If a school system believes that there's content in curriculum that is troubling for the age appropriateness of a grade,
Right.
what recourse that's not in this bill, but what recourse do they have? Because a lot of the frustration I know in a specific case has been, that I've heard from people, has been the age appropriateness of certain types of family life discussions.
Sure.
So, and then I've also heard from the other side of it that, no, it's really just very, very cursory, just to give a kindergartner or a first grader a cursory understanding of X or Y or Z. What is the current ability for there to be I don't want to say accommodation, but a dialogue
Well,
and
I
a
understand.
reconsideration?
So, So first of all, very clear, this bill maintains local control, right? And the county boards still develop. So as I said a few minutes ago, that discussion would have happened prior to the curriculum being approved, right? If there was a concern, that would have been articulated or adjusted in the original approval of the curriculum.
What if it wasn't, and then after 2 years or 3 years,
There's
4 years?
always, they can always go to their local board.
But what if the local board doesn't like it and the state board
And then
still says?
The final arbiter is our state board.
Right. What opportunity does the state board have? I'm sure they do. They can reconsider things, or they can say, we've got new information, we want to allow for an adjustment. How would that happen? Would a county board say to the state board, or ideally, I would think you'd want multiple county boards saying to a state board, hey, we think there's a mistake here, or we'd like an accommodation, or whatever. What's that? Is there a process that happens every year, or is it?
Right. So if you'll note that the state board, and this would be on page 6, this is repeating what's in state law about the state board is establishing the system, and this has to do with assessments, for example. A good example is there's differences within the ways different jurisdictions want assessments. So if you think of, this is an analogous situation where if there's some discussion about, well, we don't want to use grades or just whatever, that would be the final acceptance of that, or a rejection of that, or found it not in compliance would be with the state board. And then you also note that we have a expert review team, right? All of these systems have been set up, under the blueprint. So there's always opportunity to appeal, but there is a final arbiter, is the state board.
Down at the very bottom, this is current law, but it's in italics again because it's been added. Section 4, except as provided in paragraph 3, this section does not require a public school or county board to adopt the department's curriculum standards and resources, and may not be construed to restrict a county board's authority to adopt curricula. That says it's not restricted, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't lose funding, correct, if you didn't follow the state.
Hold on. I see that as the review team, which is not a part of the state board and is a part of the AIB. That's
Understood.
They'll confirm that, but that's my understanding.
Okay, that's a separate thing.
So that's why
fine,
it's an exception.
And we actually, and the AIB is doing good work, so we don't want to get in the way of that, and I'm certainly not trying to do that. Okay. All right. Lastly, I noticed that in this language we were discussing, it talks about the assessments of any curriculum standards of English, math, science, history, and social studies, because that can be assessed in testing. We also have a lot of areas of our curriculum that cover special areas that aren't assessed, very, very important areas. My wife's a music teacher, for example, which is very important, music and the arts.
Right.
When we have, and a lot of the controversy has come over things like human, family life, human sexuality. Right. So as our understanding of things evolves, and as we get more feedback, nothing in this bill would keep any county board or constituents from continuing to raise issues and ask questions and say, we think this should be revisited as to the appropriateness or the inappropriateness of content, correct?
Maryland is a democracy. Maryland believes that all individuals and perspectives have a right to be heard and to see themselves in the curriculum, and also have a responsibility to respond to that and provide feedback. So again, we didn't touch the section, on parental approval and et cetera. We just felt it's better just have a more general approach to all of our curriculum.
Yeah. So with the amendments, then it's fair to say that we've gotten rid of some of the things or we've decided to not have in the bill, some things that got into the area of whether a parent could approve something or not, or opt out or not, their child. And we're not focusing on one particular area of curriculum and putting that curriculum and framework in state law.
Correct.
With the amendment. We are instead saying we're giving the superintendent something. All this was currently what the superintendent could do, but we're just putting it into code? Or are we giving the superintendent any new, and not speaking to the current superintendent personally, just the position of superintendent, are we giving the superintendent position any new power here, or is it just is it mostly just codifying it?
It's codifying practice and making it very clear so that there's no questions
Confusion.
across all the 24 LEAs, as well as the state board, and affirming that we have the expectation and understanding that there are certain things that are expected of all school systems with regard to providing a high quality, world-class education, and believe strongly that the curriculum guidelines achieve that. But we didn't really have a way to interact with the boards to help them achieve that goal.
Okay. I really appreciate the dialogue and answers. I wanted to be sure we're very clear on what the bill does and what it does not do.
Yes.
I might have some comments when we go to third reader.
I'm
because
sure you
I've
will.
got a couple of concerns, but
Yes.
but I do think it's good that the committee took the foot off the gas on one or two things that were maybe a little bit aggressive, and we're trying to make sure that we have a clear process and guidelines for how things are disputed and what the superintendent's role in the local boards are. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion on the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report? On the amendments, any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Further amendments? If not, HB 161 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 593, Delegate Boafo, Public Libraries Automated External Defibrillator Program, the Raimondo A. Russell Act, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 23rd is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is an easy bill. This bill is substantially similar to Senate Bill 369 as passed in the Senate. The bill requires a library, as defined in the bill beginning January 1st, 2026, to place an automated external defibrillator in a prominent area accessible to employees and library users, comply with the Maryland Public Access Automated External Defibrillator Program, and maintain the functionality of the AID. By December 1st, 2026, the Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services Systems must submit a specified report to the Senate Committee on Education, Energy, and the Environment and the House Ways and Means Committee. There are two committee amendments. The first is technical. The second makes several technical clarifying changes. The definition of AID is made a cross-reference to existing law, and a correctional facility library is excluded from the requirements of the bill. There's minimal fiscal impact. I move the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Any discussion of the amendments? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 593 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 702, Delegate Kaufman, County Boards of Education, Special Education Service Delivery Models, Publication Requirement, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from Baltimore County is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill is substantially similar to Senate Bill 602,
as passed by the Senate. As amended, this bill requires each local board of education to develop and publish on its website a list of all special education service delivery models provided by the local school system to parentally placed private school students within the jurisdiction of the local school. There are two committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies that it is only the special education service delivery model provided by the local school system to parentally place private school students that must be published by the county board on its website. The fiscal impact is none. I move the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 702 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. See if we can get through. Let's do judicial proceedings. This is report 38. 38. All right, clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 163, Delegate Hartman, motorhome and recreational vehicle shows in Worcester County, permit for out-of-state dealers, favorable.
Recognizing Senator from the 42nd District is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill authorizes the Motor Vehicle Administration to issue an out-of-state motorhome and recreational trailer vehicle show permit that allows the permit holder to participate in vehicle shows in Worcester County. The permit may be issued to a dealer licensed in another state that reciprocally authorizes Maryland dealers to display or exhibit at vehicle shows in that state. The bill passed the House E&T Committee unanimously. It passed on the House floor 135-2. JPR passed this bill. There are no committee amendments. I hereby move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 163 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 707, Delegate Wilkins, vehicle laws, license, identification cards, and moped operators permit, notation of non-apparent disability, Eric's ID law, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate House Bill 707, as amended, this bill is identical to Senate Bill 618, which passed the Senate unanimously. The bill requires an initial and renewal application for a license, identification card, or a moped operator's permit to allow an applicant to choose to indicate on the document that the applicant has a non-apparent disability. The bill also prohibits the Motor Vehicle Administration from making certain disclosures related to the notation. Mr. President, there are two committee amendments. Amendment number 1 makes a technical correction, and amendment number 2 conforms the bill to Senate Bill 618. I'd move for the adoption of two committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 707 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 785, Delegate Feldmark, common ownership communities and zoning authorities, operation of family child care homes, limitations, favorable.
Recognized Vice Chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes clear that the State Department of Education, as well as our locals, have exclusive authority over the operation of family child care homes and not HOAs. The bill's provision does not apply to housing that is restricted for occupancy to individuals over a specified age. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 785 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 860, Delegate Buckle, public nuisance, common carriers, damage to public infrastructure, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from District 1 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 860 is a bill that prohibits a common carrier or an employee of a common carrier from causing damage to public infrastructure, and that necessitates the closure of the public infrastructure. There is one committee amendment. That amendment is that it removes the transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft in the definition of common carrier. Mr. President, I move the amended favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 860 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1123, Delegate Bartlett, Correctional Services, Medical, and Elder Parole, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill makes various changes relating to geriatric and medical parole. Specifically, the bill alters the factors the Maryland Parole Commission must consider to determine whether an individual is suitable for medical parole. Number 2, it repeals the provisions related to the gubernatorial approval of a decision of the commission to grant medical parole under specified circumstances. And 3, it establishes a process for the commission to determine the suitability of parole for specified individuals who are at least 65 and meet other specified conditions. 4th, it authorizes the use of savings from the Justice Reinvestment to hire psychologists to perform risk assessments of candidates for geriatric parole. Mr. President, there are 2 committee amendments. Number 1 is technical, and number 2 conforms the bill to Senate Bill 181 as amended by the House by altering provisions relating to the geriatric parole process as described above. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1123 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1125, Delegate Clippinger, Work Group on Home Detention Monitoring Report Alterations in Data Collection, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 34th District as the floor leader.
No. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1125 expands the scope of the work group on home detention monitoring to include policies and practices when a person violates home detention. There were no committee amendments and unanimous vote. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1125 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1464, Delegate Stewart, Motor Vehicles, Rental Fleet Vehicles, Registration, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 26th as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The bill establishes an alternative registration process for rental fleet vehicles and requires the Motor Vehicle Administration to issue distinctive registration license plates for rental vehicles registered under the alternative process. Under the bill, the owner of a fleet of 5 or more rental vehicles may register any rental vehicle in the fleet under the bill's provisions or under current statutory provisions that apply to the registration of rental vehicles. The annual registration fee for a rental vehicle is the same registration fee that applies to rental vehicles under current law. In addition to the annual registration fee, an owner of a rental vehicle registered under the bill must pay a one-time initial registration fee of up to $8.50 under the new registration or when the new registration plates are issued. There are no committee amendments, and we move for the favorable report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1464 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill. Oh, is that it? That'll do it. All right. All right, let's do these budget and tax. Let's start with number 22. It's the weight of economic growth. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 427, the President Economic Development, Delivering Economic Competitiveness, Advancing Development Efforts Decade Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over the years, we've enacted a wide range of incentives for business to come to Maryland and stay in Maryland, invest in Maryland. And over the interim, the administration took a look at them broadly and came in with this administration bill to make tweaks to them, basically, to see where there were problems they could fix, see where things weren't working as well as they might be. The original bill is introduced, phased out some. We took a look at that. Most of those we did not phase out, but we did take the tweaks and improvements to try to streamline them. And so there are a lot of details here, but there's no significant fiscal impact, and they basically make the operations of these incentives work better. There are 2 amendments. One is technical, and the other makes a few of the changes that we made in committee. Happy to answer any questions about the specifics if anyone has one. And then I've got 2 technical amendments to offer.
Okay. The Senator moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Recognizing the minority leader on the amendments.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I know that this has been seen through 2 committees, but as you mentioned, there are an awful lot of amendments from the original bill.
Right.
If we could just take time to maybe special order this till the afternoon session so we can evaluate a little bit better. Thank you very much.
No objections from the committee. Any from the floor? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time.
Thank you.
This afternoon. All right. Clerk, read the next bill.
Right. Senate Bill 611, Senator King, Access to Health Insurance for Child Care Professionals, Outreach, and Qualifying Nonprofit Satellite Organization, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 611, as amended, requires the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange to promote access to health insurance for child care professionals by partnering with the Maryland State Department of Education, pre-kindergartner provider hubs, child care associations, and relevant nonprofit organizations. The exchange is also required to assess current levels of health care access across the child care community by conducting a survey developed in consultation with MSDE and relevant nonprofit organizations, and with a particular emphasis on providers who accept child care scholarship vouchers. There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes to the title. Amendment number 2 requires MHBE to promote access to health insurance for child care professionals in partnership with the Department of Education. Specifies what informational resources will be provided, requires a survey to assess current levels of health care access for child care professionals, and strikes provisions related to participation of providers in the state health plan. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 611 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reading. All right, let's go to the House bills. This is Report 23. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 185, Delegate Miracle North Therapeutic Child Care Grant Program funding alterations, favorable 2 amendments.
Recognizing the majority leader as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 185, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 359, which passed the Senate unanimously. It reestablishes a mandated appropriation for the Therapeutic Child Care Grant Program administered by the Maryland State Department of Education, MSDE. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical, and the second makes changes to match the Senate bill as passed by the Senate. Move adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 185 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 300, Delegate Kerr, State Government Grants and Contracts, Reimbursement of Indirect Costs, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 300 as amended is an emergency bill that requires a state grant or contract to allow certain nonprofit organizations to reimburse indirect costs at a rate equal to the greater of 15% of the federal OMB uniform guidance. Current law provides for an indirect cost rate of at least 10%. There are two amendments. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes to the title, and Amendment 2 strikes a study from the bill and adds background provision. The committee action favorable with the two amendments.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 300 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 500, the Speaker Procurement Reform Act of 2025, favorable with two amendments.
Procurement reform. Recognize the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator. Senator, may I proceed?
I thought I heard someone singing. Thank you, Mr. President. Was someone singing?
No, it's in the hallway, Senator. We're having the sergeant at arms go out there and
All right.
have a conversation.
Okay. House Bill 500 is an administration bill that makes changes to state procurement law related to governance and oversight, small and minority business preference programs, payment practices, and master contracting. It also establishes new procurement programs or requirements for vendors related to good labor practices, use of interns and registered apprentices, and diversity plans. Finally, it makes clarifying, conforming, and technical changes to state procurement law. There are two amendments. The first amendment makes technical changes to the title, and amendment number 2 strikes a provision that would move authority to cancel procurement solicitations or reject all bids or proposals from the Board of Public Works to the Chief Procurement Officer, clarifies the requirements for regulations related to the use of apprentices and interns, and strikes provisions establishing for contract modification in statute. I move the adoption of the committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report, recognizing the minority leader on the report. On the amendments, I'm sorry, on the amendments.
Thank you very much again, Mr. President. Again, a very large bill that has gone through some significant changes. Is it okay to special order that until this afternoon, please?
Senator, the move to special order the bill to the subsequent session to take a look at the amendments. Any
That'll be
objections?
fine.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Don't
Thank
make
you.
them too hard.
Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time later this afternoon. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 698, Delegate Allen, Local Government Development Impact Fees, Surcharges, and Excise Taxes Reporting, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 698 as amended is identical to Senate Bill 814 as passed unanimously by the Senate. It requires by July 1 specified counties to annually report information regarding the collection and use of development impact fees, surcharges, and excise taxes to the Department of Planning. Committee amendments, there were two. One's technical, the second conforms the bill to the posture of the Senate bill. Move adoption of the committee amendments and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 698 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 859, Delegate Solomon, access to health insurance for child care professionals, outreach, favorable.
All right. Child care. Madam Majority Leader? This is child care professionals, health insurance. I think it's a cross file potentially. Yes, recognize the Senator, the Majority Leader as the floor leader.
Yes. Yes, Mr. President. Senate Bill 359 is an exact cross-file with House Bill 185. It is, reestablishes a mandated appropriation for the therapeutic child care grant
Senator,
program.
I think this is the 859. This is the other one.
85.
House Bill 859.
It's the exact cross-file to Senate Bill 611.
That we just heard earlier?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Senator moves the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 859 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 953, Delegate Kaiser, tax sales homeowner protection program funding and alterations, favorable.
Recognize Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. House Bill 953, actually, I wish I had time, Mr. President, to cross-file this. I was trying to follow the rules and literally the Rules Committee, so I didn't want to file this late. But this really tries to help keep people in their homes regarding tax sales. It's something that we worked closely with the Maryland Association of County Organizations, MACO. They have no opposition to this. They think it's going to be very helpful. There's no opposition to the bill. What it does is it makes sure that we continue the program, Mr. President and colleagues, to make sure people have the opportunity to stay in their home, to prevent them going to tax sale where their home would be put up for auction. There are some modifications to the costs, and it also makes sure that there's updates to technology, making sure that it's put on the website. There was no committee amendments, no opposition. It was unanimous in committee, and I'd move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 953 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1085, Delegate Fair, Housing Authorities Tax Exempt Status, Modifications, favorable.
Recognize Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. This is a housing affordability bill. Today, 3 counties, Baltimore City, Howard County, and Montgomery County, exempt from property taxes subsidiaries of housing authorities from property tax. This just extends that statewide. Move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1085 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's see. Where are we? I think. All right, Madam Secretary, if we could please ring the bells. Madam Clerk, if we could please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's do some of the ones that are, while we're waiting for our 2 chairs to come back from their conversations with people in the House. Start with my favorite ones. We have, let's see, this is Senate Bill. Start with the not concurs.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 209, Chair of Finance Committee, State Commission of Real Estate Appraisals, Appraisal Management Companies, and Home Inspectors Sunset Extension Report. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House proceed from its position. Said bill is returned to herewith by order.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we just need the bill at the moment. Let's hear from the House.
Oh, right.
So we're on Senate Bill 209. Let's hear from the chair of the committee.
Committee voted not to concur.
All right. The chair moves that the Senate not concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate refuses to concur with the House amendments. The clerk will read the message.
All right. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Senate, House of Delegates, Senate Bill 209, Chair of Finance Committee, State Commission on Real Estate Appraisals, Appraisal Management Companies, Home Inspectors, Sunset Extension, and Report. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Said bill is returned herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. Let's go to the next one, which is going to be Senate Bill 338. They won't. All right, this is Senate Bill 338. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 338, Baltimore County Senators, Baltimore County Speed Monitoring Systems, Interstate 695 and Interstate 83. Senate will not concur. Please recede.
Let's hear from the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. JPR does not concur and appoints Senators West, Sidnor, and Walsh-Riker for the Conference Committee.
All right, the senator moves that we not concur with the House amendments. Any discussion of the senator's motion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate does not concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message to the House.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 46, Senator Watson, Real Property, Wrongful Detainer Actions. The Senate refused to...
338.
Just having a day.
Sorry. There we go.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 338, Baltimore County Senators, Baltimore County Speed Monitoring Systems, Interstate 695 and Interstate 83. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator West, Chair, Senator Sidnor, and Senator Walsh-Riker. Said bill is returned to herewith by order. Nicole Alexander.
All right, message having been read is adopted. We have another one. This is, which bill? 814, Senate Bill 814, out of Triple appears. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 814, Senator Watson, Local Government Development Impact Fees, Surcharges, and Excise Tax Reporting. Senate will not concur. Please receive.
Vice Chair of the committee, or Senator from Prince George's?
Yes, we will not recede.
All right, the committee it moves to not moves to not concur and reject the House amendments. Is that correct? Yes. All right.
Sorry.
The committee moves that the Senate reject the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate refuses to concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 814, Senator Watson, Local Government Development Impact Fees, Surcharges, and Excise Taxes Reporting. The Senate refused to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator M. Jackson, Chair, Senator Hedelman, Senator Salling. Said bill is returned herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. We have one last one out of judicial proceedings. Clerk will read the message. Excuse me, we'll read the bill.
Senate Bill 46, Senator Watson, Real Property, Wrongful Detainer Actions. Senate will not concur. Please recede. Suggest conference committee. Senator Sidnor, McKay,
All right,
Charles.
let's just the bill. We recognize the chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The House amendment strike the bill and requires a hearing to be held within 14 days after the complaint is filed. It requires service to occur within 4 business days after the complaint is filed, and it authorizes if 2 attempts are made on 2 separate days, the person in actual possession cannot be found. The person is authorized to service process. Mr. President, the committee moves not to concur with the House amendments and appoints Senators Sidnor, Charles, and West.
All right, Chair moves to for the Senate to not concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections to the motion? Without objection, the motion carries. The Senate does not concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 46, Senator Watson, Real Property Wrongful Detainer Actions. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Signor, Chair, Senator McKay, Senator Charles. Said bill is returned to herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. Okay, that gets rid of those. We have some concurrences. We'll leave those to the end. We've got special order calendar number 50. Number 50. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 277, Delegate Ruth, Environment Water Bottle Filling Station Requirement Bill is on third reading for final passage.
All right, House Bill 277 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 277, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we've got Senate third reading calendar number 2020. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 15, Delegate Shi, Corporations and Associations, Limited Worker Cooperative Associations, Authorization, Maryland Limited Worker Cooperative Association Act, on third reading.
House Bill 15 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? And to change their vote, explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 15, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 388, Delegate Robertson, Vehicle Laws, Drunk and Drug Driving Points Assessment.
House Bill 388 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 388, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 475, Delegate Allen, Transportation Equality for Service Members Act.
House Bill 475 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 475, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 604, the Speaker, Criminal Law, Financial Exploitation of Vulnerable and Senior Adults.
House Bill 604 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 604, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 913, Delegate Wells, Baltimore City, Speed Monitoring Systems, Interstate 83.
House Bill 913 is on third reading. Recognize the senator from the 41st District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
Senator has amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
Thank you.
We look forward to the senator from District 7 helping to repair I-83. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this bill allows for 2 cameras in each direction on I-83 in Baltimore City. With the amendment, only one in each direction can be operational at the same time. I move the amendment.
Senator moves the amendment. Any objections to the senator's amendment? Yes. Senator wants 2 cameras on? No. All right. On the amendment, if there is no objections, amendment is adopted. Question now is, the bill's on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 913, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to 27, calendar 27. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 32, a Delegate Charkoudian, Maryland Department of Health Forensic Review Board established.
House Bill 32 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 32, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 466, Delegate Kipke, Health Equality for Service Members Act.
House Bill 466 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 466, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 672, Delegate Collison, School Health and Wellness Personal Assessment and Maryland Council on Investment of School-Based Health Centers.
House Bill 672 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 672, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 728, Delegate Rosenberg, Opioid Restitution Fund, authorized users.
House Bill 728 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 728, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 765, Delegate Ivy, Hospitals Medical Debt Collection, Sale of Patient Debt.
House Bill 765 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 765, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 790, Delegate Atterbury, Property Tax Payment Plans, Notice to Taxpayers.
House Bill 790 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 790, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 971, Delegate Pruski, Anne Arundel County Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park Advisory Committee.
House Bill 971 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 971, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1100, Delegate White Holland, Public Health, Health Equity Dashboard.
House Bill 1100 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1100, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1380, Delegate Pena Melnick, Healthcare Facilities, Hospitals, and Freestanding Birth Centers, Perinatal Care Standards.
House Bill 1380, third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1380, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1478, Delegate Hill, Public Health Report on Establishing a Directory of Home Health Care Providers.
House Bill 1478 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1478, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1481, Delegate Hill, Disability Services Adapted Vehicle Access Pilot Program established.
House Bill 1481 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1481, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right. Let's go to third reading calendar number 28. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Let's go to 29. 29. These are amended, so we're going to get those over. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 9, Delegate Charkoudian, Public Safety Food Systems Resiliency Council definition and reports.
All right, House Bill 9 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 9, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 59, Chair, Ways and Means, Property Tax, Tax Sales Revisions.
House Bill 59, third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 59, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 774, Delegate Davis, Higher Education Hunger-Free Campus Grant Program alterations.
House Bill 774 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 774, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 819, Delegate Gazone, Procurement Employee Stock Ownership Plan Preference Pilot.
House Bill 819 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk could take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 819, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 879, Delegate Smith, Task Force to Improve Attendance and Reduce Chronic Absenteeism in Schools.
House Bill 879 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 879, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1335, Caroline County Delegation, Caroline County Alcoholic Beverages Rules, Special Event Venue License, and Multiple Event Licenses.
House Bill 1335 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1335, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1344, Delegate D. Jones, Department of General Services, Assessment of State-Owned Facilities, Child Care Centers.
House Bill 1344 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1344, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to 30. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 75, Chair, Ways and Means, Election Law, Special Elections.
House Bill 75 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 75, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 197, Delegate Pasture, Public Schools, Restorative Practices Schools, Comprehensive Plan.
House Bill 197 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 197, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 199, Chair, Ways and Means, Election Law, Notice to Permanent Absentee Voters.
House Bill 199 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 199, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 324, Delegate Corman, County Board of Education Anti-Bias Training for Members Requirement, County Board Member Anti-Bias Training Act.
House Bill 324 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34, I think. 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 324, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 562, Baltimore County Delegation, Baltimore County Political Party Central Committee Elections.
House Bill 562 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 562, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 716, Chair, Environment and Transportation Committee, Housing and Community Development, Statewide Rental Assistance Voucher Program Eligibility Alterations.
House Bill 716 is on third reading for final passage. Recognized Vice Chair of the committee has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got an amendment.
All right, Senator has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a technical amendment that will protect the department and its housing work if in the event of additional changes at the federal level. It is supported by the department, and the committee move adoption of the floor report, the floor amendment.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the committee amendment. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the floor amendment is adopted. House Bill 716 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 716, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 791, Delegate Otto, Somerset County Property Tax Emergency Services Tax.
House Bill 791 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 791, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1131, Delegate Vogel, Public Health, Buprenorphine Training Grant Program and Work Group.
House Bill 1131 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1131, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1143, Delegate Bagnall, Maryland Collaborative to Improve Children's Oral Health Through School-Based Programs Establishment.
House Bill 1143 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1143, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1193, Delegate Wolek, Housing Development Permits, Local Reporting Requirements, Maryland Housing Data Transparency Act.
House Bill 1193 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1193, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1204, Delegate Patterson, Public and Non-Public Schools, Student Elopement Notice and Reporting Requirements, ACES Law.
House Bill 1204 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1204, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to third reading calendar number 31. Clerk will read the bill.
Mr. President,
Yes, recognize the senator from the...
on that last bill, HB 1204, I'm sorry, I've missed my buttons.
In the green?
Green, yes.
Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. All right, House Bill, or excuse me, clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 853, Delegate Pasteur, Post-Conviction Review Procedure to Reduce Duration of Sentence, Maryland's Second Look Act.
All right, House Bill 853 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize the minority whip on the bill.
Just making sure there wasn't anything else we needed to do before we start. We're good. Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to oppose this legislation. We had some discussion yesterday and some amendments that we offered. But as I look at what this bill does, it allows for a group of individuals who were convicted of crimes that have to be pretty serious because we're talking about serving at least 20 years of a sentence. It allows them to have what's called in the bill a second look. We've already done this kind of policy for those who were convicted as juveniles. We've also in this state put a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy into rehabilitative services, into justice reinvestment. We did reforms ranging from reforms of policing. This body has supported countless measures aimed at the concern of the person who committed the crime and giving them second chances, other opportunities in their life. And to be honest, I've supported some efforts, some things we've done to reform criminal justice. There are things that we did together in a bipartisan way many years ago. The idea was always, though, when we were reforming criminal justice at that time, that for nonviolent drug offenses and things of that nature, that we would try to get away from jail time criminalization, but that for very serious crimes where people were harmed and hurt on purpose, we would actually increase penalties and make it tougher. And instead, over the last several years, this body and the General Assembly has watered down those protections, and this is another in a line of those. But the question I find myself asking as I've sat here and listened to a lot of the debate and thought about this bill for a few days is, where is the perspective for what victims of these crimes have gone through? Where is the understanding that a victim, their families, they never, in some cases, they never see their loved one again, or their loved one has been perhaps irreparably harmed by the individual that now is getting what's called a second look, but is in fact, as was mentioned yesterday, multiple second looks. If we pass this bill today, and I would urge that we not, the individuals that we are discussing, who in many cases have murdered someone, seriously harmed someone, committed extremely violent criminal acts to get to the point where they're serving more than 20 years without being released or without the possibility of parole before that, or they've before that in many cases. Or they've had an opportunity at parole and been rejected. When someone is sentenced to a sentence of 20 years or more, they've had a court proceeding to get them the sentence. They've had appeal opportunities. They've had, in a lot of cases, this bill does at least say if you're here in life without parole, you don't get a second look. But they've had parole hearings, perhaps more than one, and they haven't been let out if they're eligible for this. This bill gives them, once they've served 20 years, a motion to modify, to go back to court and have a judge look again. The family has already been drugged through a trial. They've drugged through any appeals. They've been drugged through, the family of the victims have been drugged through parole hearings. Now it's a motion to modify. Well, that's the second look. Oh, wait, no, there's another second look. They could do another motion to modify just a couple years later. And if that fails, another one. How many times are we going to drag victims and their families through this process for people who, this is not for someone who maybe was dealing drugs or stole a car or even broke in and entered somebody's house and came back out. This is a serious crimes. These really hurt people. Then after that, there's another bill moving that we've passed through the Senate that would allow for extended medical parole and elder parole opportunities. So you could conceivably, even beyond this, have more opportunities for an extremely violent criminal who may have tried to reform. People can change. But there's still the need for justice. And at some point, for our victims, enough is enough. This bill has some exceptions, which have been hard fought. It has exceptions in it for sex offenders. We had an amendment that passed by one vote last year on this floor on rape. And that has stayed in the bill with all sex offenders, which is good. But it wasn't going to be in it. It wasn't going to be in it unless we had, as a body, said that we need to be sure somebody who's a first-degree rapist or a sex offender doesn't get out. And now we have another exception. If you have murdered a first responder in their duties, but we don't have an exception for really anything else here. What if you've murdered multiple people? What if you murdered a young child? You've been through the opportunity in some cases for parole, been rejected, but now you're going to get a second look, even though it's not really the second look. It's more like the 17th look, and then an 18th look, and a 19th look. What if you murdered a pregnant woman? What if you committed a heinous crime that involved just a group of people that was very serious and damaged a community? That's all still in. It's all still in the bill. Mr. President, we've done a lot to try to reform the criminal justice system in this state. This body, I think, has gone too far. But if you don't agree with me we've gone too far, surely you can agree that this is a step we should not take. We should not take. These were people convicted as adults of very serious crimes. They should not get a second look that's really a 17th or 18th look. So, Mr. President, my vote will be no, and I urge the body to please vote no.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, recognize the senator from the 26th District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I hear a lot of talk about the worst of these and hideous crimes taking a second look. But we have to also understand that Maryland incarcerates the highest number of persons, and the only state closest to us that's close to that is Mississippi. Maryland incarcerates the highest percentage of black people in the country. And this bill is about not just rehabilitation, but taking a look at people to determine if their sentences were actually just. We know in the 70s and 80s when a number of just that 1 or 2% of police officers and prosecutors who work together to hide evidence. It's not just for murder, it's not just for rape, but even for drug offenses. So we're not saying take a look always at the worst, because sometimes the victims are those who are actually incarcerated. And whether we want to admit it or not, you look at the number of those who have had their sentences vacated, those who did not even receive compensation for giving 20 years of their lives for crimes that they did not do. So I want to rise not just on behalf of, and I am very much touched and moved by those who are actually victims of the crimes, but I'm also moved by those who sit in jail now. 72 or 73%. Blacks make up 36, 37% of the population and 72% of the prison population. The sentences that are harsher than those given to others. So I want to support this bill because I do believe that everyone deserves that chance to know whether or not justice was really served, including the victims of these crimes and the families who think that justice was served. And I listened to families who thought justice was served only to find out that the perpetrator was never arrested. And so we have to look at this from more than just what my friends and what my friend just said, but we also represent and have to stand up for the least of these who were incarcerated for the worst and really should not have been there. Another look to see if justice occurred is not too much to ask, and I'll be voting green on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 28th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. In listening to this debate, I worked my brain to see where I would fall in supporting this bill, and I'm comfortable in supporting this bill. We heard comments, a lot of the comments yesterday about law enforcement officers being killed on the job, and I'm very deeply sorry for that. They are our protectors, and we know that individuals put their lives on the line to really protect and serve us. As a military officer, our military folks do that all the time, and I really understand that very deeply. And I share this to say that I know the military has bad actors also, and we have protections to really deal with that when it happens. Unfortunately, in our civilian life, there are bad actors in the police force who sometimes, a very small percentage, but a lot of these actors have gone, bad actors, gone after people of color, black people, especially black men, over the years, and cause severe damage to some innocent folks. And in reading in our obituary for the legendary sports writer John Feinstein by a legendary journalist, Eugene Meyer, I stumbled upon something I was not aware of. And this is just a few weeks ago, published by Eugene Meyer of the Washington Post. Talked about John Feinstein, described as a legendary sports writer who died yesterday of apparent heart attack at age 69. He was a larger-than-life figure and a brash young kid when he and I teamed up in the late 1970s at the Washington Post to investigate a police death squad in Prince George's County, Maryland. Starting as a post-summer intern fresh out of Duke University, John was sent to the bureau in the county seat of Upper Marlboro and assigned to cover the courts and cops. I had recently emerged from there to take a broader statewide beat as a Maryland rover, a job I'd long wanted. Before leaving, I've heard rumors of the rogue squad in Hyattsville, Theft Division, that operated in the late 1960s. It was a skeleton in the department closet that had been rattling around for 12 years. To end a rash of convenience store robberies, the squad's leader had coerced an informant to recruit suspects to commit robberies. The cops would then stake out the locations and the course of stopping the thefts they themselves had facilitated. So the cops facilitated the thefts. So in the course of stopping the thefts they themselves had facilitated, they killed the perpetrators. The story had never been publicly told. I had a source near retirement, not ready to talk. Following my footsteps, John, the individual past Feinstein, John stumbled into the same story. A few words here about the Post bureaus and the Post, Washington Post, Prince George's County Bureau. The county, then in largely white, blue-collar jurisdictions, once dubbed, quote, the ugly stepsister, unquote, within the affluent metropolitan area. So Prince George's was not always beautiful Prince George's. It's a beautiful Prince George's now. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Prince George's. But it was called the ugly stepsister within the affluent metropolitan area. Was a great place to be a reporter. It had all the bad news is good news a reporter could want. Those who cycled in and out of the bureaus included a galaxy of top talent on their way to becoming superstars. So I won't, continue to read the story, but, imagine those individuals framed for these heinous crimes. Some were murdered, some were in prison. This Second Look Act would take a look. Maryland is a different place now. As the senator from Georgia just stated before me, you have people in prison suffering for 70 years who were part of this, caught up in this evil system. And now this body is developing a conscience to say, yes, we have an ugly history throughout Maryland and the United States and this world, especially when it came to dealing with black people. The ugly history, And it's something we don't like to deal with. We want to kind of move forward, and can we all forget about that? But there are a lot of people in prison who we need to have the system take a second look, because there are so many that are influenced by not just this instance of a rogue operation in Prince George's County, but they were in Charles County, they were in Prince George's, in Baltimore City, all over the state of Maryland. It's part of our ugly, ugly past. And I'm happy to be part of this body who's bringing a conscience to this ugly past and taking a second look at some of these things. Not everybody is innocent, but there are some who are. And we need to take a second look and deal with our ugly past. It's real ugly. I hated reading this thing. I couldn't sleep after reading this article to know that, that existed and individuals are still suffering to this day because we lock them up and throw away the key. Because some people say if you're black, you're automatically guilty. Some cops have said, hey, let's find somebody to pin this on. The Central Park Five in New York City. Innocent young men lost many years of their lives. Someone on his deathbed confessed. Did the DNA? Yes, it matched. And they were let out of prison. One of those gentlemen now is on the city council in New York City, and he was here in Maryland, NAACP meeting, and I got to meet him personally. But these people exist to this day, and some of them are still in lockup because of the ugly, ugly past of a few ugly people who really tarnished our entire state. So, colleagues, I urge a yes vote on the Second Look Act. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 44th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. For a little while, I was thinking whether or not I even wanted to stand up and talk. I shared quite a bit yesterday in defending some of the amendments that were brought to the floor. But what I didn't share was some another personal stories. And I alluded yesterday to victims, families not being a monolith. Everyone's talking about the victims. I can remember I believe it was the summer of 1991. My cousin was shot in the head. I guess under a lot of what we're talking about, I'm a victim. Baltimore City, to my knowledge, never found the perpetrator. You know, a lot of these things go unsolved. But one of the stories that we heard was that the streets took care of them. A few years ago, I remember the floor, we closed the session in honor of another cousin of mine who had suddenly died right around my birthday. The story goes in our family that he died of a broken heart. His brother was murdered. Within me, and I know many in my family, if the perpetrators were caught and brought to justice, the justice is the sentence. If these people, whoever committed those crimes, showed that they did what they needed to do to re-enter society, I'd welcome them with open arms. As I said yesterday, this is about grace. And I stand on that, and I will be voting for this bill.
Thank you, Senator. All right, third reading, final passage. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? Recognize the senator from the 30th District has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you. To explain my vote, HB 853, the Maryland Second Look, would allow someone convicted of murdering a pregnant woman to have a second look. It would allow someone convicted of murdering involving a victim under the age of 6 to have a second look. It would allow someone who was convicted of violating a criminal law if controlled dangerous substance involved in violations with heroin or fentanyl to have a second look. It would allow someone convicted of murder involving a victim who was at least 65 years old, had a developmental disability, had an intellectual disability, had a physical disability to have a second look. And it would involve, HB 853 would allow someone convicted of murder involving more than one victim to have a second look. And the families of the victims will never have a second look. So this is grace and accountability, and that's why I'm voting against HB 853.
All right, any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, HB 853, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's try and push through just a couple more. Let's see if we can get. Actually, you know what? Let's not. We're going to come back. Let's see. 4:30. 4:30. Let's see. Let's try it. We'll switch things up. Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 2:30 for a voting session.
2:30 for voting. Budget and tax.
If I could ask the full committee to meet in the committee room at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Education, energy, and the environment.
Got this 2:30 distinction here. How about the EEE committee will meet? We've got bill hearings and possible voting. We'll split the difference. 2:15, Mr. President.
2:15. 2:15. It's the Senate. Everyone's unique. Let's check finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have about 5 bills to vote. I think we can do it at 3 o'clock.
All right, 3 o'clock. Excellent. Yes, Chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules Committee will meet right after the floor in the red room, please.
Excellent. Any further announcements? Delegations, caucuses? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until 4:30 this afternoon.
Without objection, so ordered. We will keep the chamber secure in the meantime. Have a excellent afternoon. Onwards. See you in a bit.